So this video is one that I feel like I kind of have to make because you guys were quite literally the reason I'm able to do this. And for those of you guys who really only watch me for PF stuff, that's perfectly fine. This is going to be a lot more of a personal video, something that I'm more making for the people that potentially care. Maybe it's for myself. I really don't know, but it's something that I made a post about a few months ago, and I'll switch over and kind of read it out to you guys, and you could follow along, or maybe you've already seen it or heard me talk about it on streams. But this is something that is really important to me, and it's something that I kind of want to talk about as a whole. Before I go through this, most people already will know this, but there's also people that will take this the wrong way. This is not a flex. This is not bragging. This is not me flaunting. This is me being thankful. Thankful for what you guys have given me the opportunity to do, and me just wanting to explain why I'm so thankful, why I'm doing it, and why it means so much to me. So let me go ahead and hop over to a community post that I wrote. So about 3 months ago, I made this community post. And if this is something that you guys already have read or you guys know about this, feel free to skip ahead maybe 20-30 seconds. But I'm going to read this out loud to kind of go through it again. So 3 months ago, I wrote that I wanted to make it a personal goal tonight to give back to my parents. You guys have heard a lot about my personal life on this platform, but don't really know how much of the past my parents sacrificed a lot for me to play games and put up with a lot of my crap. I know people don't like talking about money on YouTube, but my goal for next year is to save up $5,000 purely off of YouTube and give it all to my parents. I'd like to make a video on it, this one, and talk about my history with games and why they're so important to me. There's a lot of stuff I don't like to talk about, but I feel like getting these things off my chest in one video would be the best and allow for me to connect with you guys on a bit more of a personal level. If somehow we're lucky enough to blow up next year, quote unquote, and have the best year ever, I'll double that money to $10,000. To give some perspective, my parents have never had more than a few $100s in savings. Right now, at the current time of that post, their bank account's set under $100 because everything they have goes to providing for me and my siblings, and they've never once asked us for help. Next year, I want to make sure they won't ever have to. Love you all. You have no idea how much YouTube means to me, even though I don't really show it. Thank you for everything. So I'm going to go through this post kind of top down and hit the points that I make one by one. When I said that my parents sacrificed a lot for me to play games and put up with a lot of my crap, I was really difficult between maybe ages of, let's say, 10 to 15, 16. I became really depressed for a really long time. I stopped caring about myself as a person. I stopped caring for myself, whether that be my health or just everything. I didn't sleep much. I didn't care about school. I slept my way through high school. I barely passed high school some years, and my parents hated that. They wanted nothing more than for me to succeed more than they did. Neither of my parents have college degrees. They both have high school diplomas. They wanted nothing more than for their children to succeed more than they did. My sister went on to get her master's. Me and my brother both got our associates, but school just isn't for us, and that's probably where we're stopping. I graduated just a few days ago, actually. I just had my last few days of class. But all throughout middle school, I put up such a fight every single day of going to school. I didn't want to go to school because I didn't like myself as a person. As young as being, 11, 12 years old, I would wake up in the morning and have so much self-loathing and self-hatred that I didn't want to leave my own house. I wanted to do absolutely nothing than sit at home and play video games. I faked being sick a lot. My parents were given notices about my attendance because I just didn't show up to school so much. There was one specific day I remember where my sister quite literally dragged me out of bed and more or less carried me down the stairs and threw me into my mom's van to force me to go to school. Despite all of that, my parents still understood in a sense that even with all of my fighting back and resisting and revolting, it was more than just me being a pain in their butt. I had some serious things going on, and they tried their best to get me to open up or to care about what was going on with me, and I would just resist at every point I could. Eventually, the computer that I played all the games on, which was like kind of the family computer, it got really slow. and I couldn't play games on anymore. And like I kind of would throw not like tantrums or fits, but like, you know, my parents would hear me make comments to like my friends at the time. They're like, oh, like I'm lagging or something, or like complaining about something. And my parents went out of their way the one year to buy me a computer. It was an all-in-one computer. It wasn't, you know, top of the line or anything, but it worked. It did what I needed it to do, and it was something that I could have in my room. So I was now in my own little safe space in my room where, you know, I could get away from myself more than anything and just game. And I threw myself really into games more than I would like to admit. They were my escape for everything. They were the only real passion or joy I had for many years, and that is even sort of true to this day at times. Eventually, a year or two after that, that computer also started to get kind of obsolete, and they would hear me make the occasional comments. And I remember I went to them about getting a new computer, and they were like, "No, like there's no way we could afford that." And I tried to really get it, but I couldn't fully wrap my head around, you know, like I had seen growing up with my parents, the only time they ever really argued was really about money. I had seen throughout the years that money was an issue, but as a kid, you hear it's an issue, you know, it's your parents, they're, you know, the people you look up to, they could fix it. So I didn't really understand that sometimes as a kid, you just can't get what you want. I really wanted my escape. It was, you know, selfish. It was greedy. I wanted my escape from life. The sacrifice that they had to make for that was something that they shouldn't have, honestly. I talked them into this Alienware computer, and they put it on a credit card. And I remember the computer, the monitor, everything that came with it was over $2,000. And they put that on a credit card knowing that they couldn't afford it, knowing that my dad would have to work 6 or 7 days a week, that my mom would have to pick up extra hours at a second job just to afford that. As I got older and really started to understand the decision that they made for that, it weighed really heavy on me because I knew that I made them work harder than they needed to. It was partially my fault that they, you know, they'd get a call and be like, hey, want to come in for overtime? And my influence on them made them say yes more than they needed to. That they had to spend more time working than at home. And even if it was the slightest bit, that was partially my fault. And I took a lot of issue with that when I got older and when I really understood the concept of money and income and how big of an impact these things can have. And especially nowadays, that's something that I really look back on with a lot of regrets. I wish that I could have just found something else. I wish that I could have, you know, cared about myself enough to not force their hand into things. You know, my self-pity and my self-hatred was the reason that they did a lot of things, and I carried a burden with that for a really long time. I apologize if I'm rambling. There's a lot for me to really get off my chest. This is one of the first times I've ever really gone through and openly talked about the emotions I had with a lot of this. So if it's rambly or anything like that, I really apologize. This is me trying to get as much as I can off my chest at once. But to continue on through my thing, saying that I wanted to give them 5,000, blah, blah, blah. Talk about my history with games and why they're so important to me. Like I said, they're my escape from everything. Whether, you know, I've talked to you guys about my mom's health problems, which have been a large portion of my stress for a really long time. But even my dad's health problems, you know, my dad's had a few surgeries. He lost his job a year ago. Or no, he lost his job, I want to say 6 months ago. He's been out of work for 15 months. You know, they have disability pay, but that's not much. Not to mention that pay isn't taxed, so come tax season, they're going to get screwed with a lot of that. Come tax season, since I technically make too much money now, my parents can't claim me on their taxes. For those of you guys who don't know anything about taxes, claiming a child is basically an automatic $2,500 towards your tax refund. So let's say somehow their taxes evened out. They didn't owe any money. They didn't get any money back. Just because they had me as a child to claim as a dependent, they would get $2,500 back. And I now make too much money for them to claim that. And they would get even more because they would be able to claim my college education, my loans, everything like that. And they get none of that now. But like I said, they really made that sacrifice of buying a $2,000 computer for a kid who couldn't do basic chores because he just didn't want to leave his room, for a kid who couldn't get decent grades because I'd rather stay up all night playing video games to not think about my life, for a kid who couldn't do the most basic of things. For them, they did everything for me. They got on me about my grades. Of course, they cared a lot about my grades, and I didn't care at all. There was times that as a middle schooler, I failed classes. I would come home to a setup I didn't deserve, gifts that I didn't deserve, and I would hand my parents a report card with an F on it. And it wasn't just one class. I failed a total of 7 classes in 6th grade, and then I think I failed 2 or 3 more in 7th grade. And I started slowly getting things together for 8th grade. I had straight A's the first semester, and then I was maybe a D or C student after that. Come high school, things only got a lot worse. Fell even worse into my own self-pity and self-hatred, my own world of games being my only thing that brought me any happiness. I had, my mom's health situation got worse throughout high school, and the only way for me to cope with that at the time was video games. It's all I had. It's not all I had, but it's all I felt like I had. I had a family. I had a really supportive family. I had a family who would have done anything to see me happy. I didn't realize that. I only felt like video games were what I had. They were the only thing there for me in my mind. So my grades got even worse. I passed with straight D's. I had a 1.4 GPA my freshman year, which means I barely passed my classes, period. The only class I did good in sophomore year was history, and that's because I knew I had a really cool history that I could take honors for junior's year. So junior year I had honors history and barely passed every other class. I only took honors history because I knew my teacher was going to be a really cool guy. Senior year I had straight A's, but by that point the damage was done. I could have gone to college for free. New Jersey has a program where if you're in the top 20% of your class, which, mind you, that's not the most difficult thing for me to do. I've proven many times that I can hold straight A's, whether that be high school or college, and I just didn't care enough to. So instead of putting forth a little bit of effort in high school, I'm now paying back $15,000 for an associate's degree. And that's community college, mind you. That is the cheapest this could have gotten, was $15,000. And I'm paying that back because I just didn't care. And I had to take all those loans out because there's not a chance in hell my parents could afford to pay for my college. There's not a chance in hell they could afford to take out a loan to help me pay for college. To give you guys reference, and I don't mean to air my parents' business out there that much, but to really put this into perspective for you guys, a recent event, my dad called me downstairs last week and asked for $100 to pay a medical bill because he didn't have the money, because he didn't have that $100 to pay for one of our emergency room visits that happened. This was last week. Like, we're talking not like last year, not like a few years ago. Like, this struggle with my parents' finances is today. It is Christmas. It is, to this day, they struggle. That's not just anything. That's, my dad's truck's brake lines went. That was $400. My parents don't have that. I paid that for them. And it compounds into each other because instead of, they take it as, oh, I paid $400 for the brake lines, now I don't owe a car payment for 2 months. So instead of them, charging me my car, which they, it comes automatically out of my mom's paycheck, so they never see that money anyways, but instead of charging me the $200 a month it is for my car, they say, oh, Chris paid the brake lines, he doesn't owe a car payment for 2 months. And that works, but in my head, that's just not enough. That's not okay. Me being the one that's able to, afford those emergency costs shouldn't be, oh, we owe him something. And that's what I want this Christmas to be. I don't want it to be, he's giving us money, so we owe him. I want this to be, I'm giving them money, no strings attached. Thank you for everything you've done for me. To give another example of why, I say I'm so far ahead on my bills, my puppy Apollo, we got him, and when he was 3 months old, his stomach somehow completely flipped upside down and twisted his organs in his stomach. And that surgery cost $4,000. And my parents didn't have that, of course. So they put half of it on a credit card, and I paid $2,000 cash to get him, because it was either pay that $4,000 or we had to put him to sleep. We had just put my Rottweiler down 4 months prior. He was 4 years old and he got cancer, and we had just put him down. And my dad had to make that phone call right in front of me to my mom, and I had to listen to her from, he was sitting right next to me. I could hear the conversation of, we simply can't afford to keep this dog alive. We have to put him down. And how could I sit there knowing how much, our Rottweiler meant to us and our puppy means to us, and have the financial means to do something and not do it? And that kind of all ties into today. It is today. It's 2 o'clock in the morning right now, but today is Christmas 2020. I made that post 3 months ago saying that next year I wanted to give my parents $5,000. And again, this is not a flex. This is not a brag. This is doable purely because of you guys. Purely because of how good my channel has done and the generosity of so many of you and everyone who just simply watches my videos. This is $5,000 cash that I'm giving to my parents. The goal that I set to be able to hopefully do at the end of 2021, I am doing 3 months later. Because of you. Because of every single person who has believed in me. Because of every single person that's come to the streams and donated. Because of every single person that watches the half-effort quality content that I put out. I am able to do this because of you. I am an overpaid Lego player who has been giving too many opportunities from a community who I don't even realize. I've never fully understood why I got so lucky. Last year, to put into reference, me, my brother, and my sister put together $1,500, $1,500 for my parents. And they broke down crying in front of us and just said thank you. And I kind of gave it out early, last week to my mom and said, I understand that this is going to, you guys are going to say no to this, but whether you like it or not, come Christmas Day, I'm going to handle some things for you guys. And she was like, you're not giving us anything, blah, blah, blah. And she argued. She doesn't want anything from me. She doesn't want help. She wants me to focus on my future. And she even tried having the conversation again with me 2 days ago, saying, me and your father will be happy when you guys are succeeding and doing everything. But because of you guys, I'm able to continue to succeed and continue to, chase the dreams that I have and still do this for them. And for some people out there, for honestly, most people in the world, not just the United States, the world, what I'm holding in my hand right now is life-changing money. What I give to my parents today when we go to open presents is life-changing money. This is, 3.5 months of my parents' mortgage. This is $5,000 in credit cards that they owe, which, mind you, they owe more, but this is $5,000 of bills that they could not pay otherwise. That my dad doesn't have to swallow his pride and come to me and say, hey, look, I can't afford this bill. Can you help us? This is $5,000 of thank you for putting up with me and believing in me. And it's $5,000 that I'm giving to them purely because of you guys. Mind you, I work a full-time job and I pay my own bills, and I had my surgery that was $18,000 that I'll be paying off for the next year of my life, but none of that matters more to me. None of that matters to me at all compared to this. And again, this isn't a flex, this isn't a brag. If you're someone who doesn't come to my streams often or hasn't talked to me on Discord on a one-on-one conversation or anything like that, I don't talk about money. I don't brag about what I have, because what I have is nothing at the end of the day. Because as much as, you know, I argued for a long time that money doesn't, or that money can buy happiness, and it simply just can't. I'd give this money away any day of the week if it meant making myself happy. And this is what's going to make me happy for once. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm able to provide and to help. The little bills that I've paid here and there, you know, a few $100s here and there, never made an impact on me because they never felt like I was doing enough. They were, you know, an emergency expense. You know, the car needs new tires. Can you help us pay for those? Sure. You know, those are normal day-to-day expenses. For years, my sister was the go-to for my parents. If things ever got really tough and they couldn't afford it, they kind of fell back onto my sister. They hated it. They hate to do it. But at times, everyone just needs help. How can I sit by and watch as, you know, my dad lost his job because of things out of his control? My mom only makes so much because, you know, the job she has and the good health insurance we get, and she needs to keep that job or else we're screwed because of our health problems. That now, at such a young age, I'm fortunate enough to be in the position to do this. And I feel like this is going nowhere and I'm really rambling, but I have a lot of emotions right now. I am finally happy with myself. I am finally proud of something I've done. And, you know, like I said, the money means nothing to me, but it'll mean everything to them. $5,000 sitting in my bank account means quite literally nothing to me. It has no impact on my day-to-day life, but it is life-changing for them. This money will buy stress relief. Money cannot buy happiness, but it sure as hell can relieve stress. That's what I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping that I give this to them today, not tomorrow. I'm hoping I hand this to them and a weight just comes off their shoulders. That they know that they're going to be okay. That's just all I care about. And like I said, this is purely you guys. Every single cent of what I'm holding in my hands is from you guys. To be able to do this a year faster than I thought I would be able to, I don't really have words for. It's hard to put words onto something that you can't believe. A year ago, I was broke. I was, you know, I had no job. I was barely getting through the basic needs of things. And I was watching my parents struggle. A year ago, I felt like nothing. A year ago, I was that same 12-year-old with no self-worth that would look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm doing nothing. I'm doing things, but I have no impact. You know, 9 months later, I wrote a message saying, like, God, I would do anything, basically, to make that impact. And 3 months later, I am. For the sake of stopping myself from rambling more and just kind of going off on a tangent of the same, I can't believe that this is real. Just one final thank you to you guys. One final moment to finally say that I'm proud of myself, that I've achieved something in life. And one moment to really take in the fact that there was almost, as of today, 72,000 people that watched the video and either laughed or subbed out of pity or believed in me. And that's something that I've never felt before. For once in my life, I feel like I have people that care about me succeeding. And even though it's been there my entire life, it took a long time for me to see that. I hope you guys all are safe. I hope that everyone's safe. I hope that everyone has an amazing Christmas and just holidays in general. I apologize for anyone whose religious beliefs, you know, you celebrate other holidays. I hope that in the future I can continue to give back in ways that you guys have made me fortunate enough to be able to. Not just to my family. I hope that in the future I can make a life-changing impact on another family the way that you guys have done to mine. So thank you.